Good morning, everyone. This is Andrew Kircher here with Port Huron Museums. We've had a nice long weekend, a couple chilly days. I know I'm looking forward to some warmer weather in the near future, but we are back with our continuing series of some looks around town. I've got one today that we've had a few requests for, and one that I think a lot of people were interested to see. And when I looked at our map about where we've been, this was a kind of a big blank area. So we're on kind of a noisy corner right now, but I bet you it's one that just about everybody will recognize. We're on the corner of Court Street and 24th here. So we are right. There's the the McDonald's, the South End Kroger's, the new Ollie's that opened up, the Arby's right down there. It's kind of the main street in the south end of town, and we are actually going to be headed east here on Court Street. Now we are right here at Port Huron High School. We can see the new addition here that went up on 2004, 2005, right around then. I was in high school at Northern when these additions went up, and they kind of match each other. And they're nice auditoriums. I guess the problem is they maybe are a little small for their purpose. I don't know. One of the plans that I had heard at one point was that they were going to build a giant auditorium at one high school and maybe a swimming pool at the other. But no, they built two auditoriums that were maybe a little small for the size of the high schools here. And I think down there is maybe part of the new science center that they just built, and it matches the auditorium. You can see it's food pickup day here, so we're going to stay well out of their way so we don't interfere with anything. But I figured we would walk here on Court Street, and Court Street's one way, and we're going to go the other way just because we're walking and we can. Most people, well, obviously no one's ever driven it this way, at least no one who's driving safely. So this gives you a new perspective, a new lease on life, just to see these buildings coming from the other direction. Now, Port Huron High School, this one opened in 1956, 57, right around there, when they built this. And this replaced the building from 1908 that became later on now part of SC4. Obviously, in the 50s, the late 50s, all of the baby boomers were in high school age. There truly was a baby boom right after World War II. All those kids needed to go to school, and tons of schools were built. In fact, even though they built this brand new school in 1957, it very quickly was not big enough, and they had to build Northern just a couple of years later in 1965. In fact, in 1962, they even had afternoon school. They had 2 rounds of school. Maybe somebody here, anybody watching, maybe remember that. If you were a morning class or an afternoon class, it was just a couple of years. I've heard from a few people who talked about, having to come in the morning, or their friends came in the afternoon before Northern opened, and they were able to transfer about half of the load over there. So that's Port Huron High School is a great example of some mid-century architecture. Notice it's low, flat, takes up a lot of room, not multiple story or anything like that, like some of the older schools we see. In fact, we're going to see another one here. It's basically just across the street. All right, there's a little bit of traffic to navigate here. We're going to keep walking. So we've got just a little bit before we get to that other school to take a look at. I want to take this opportunity to again plug Port Huron Museums. We are doing these throughout the month. We do plan on opening in June, and really hope on the community support, all of the people who are watching. A great way to help us out is through a donation. You can do that right on our website, or you can buy tickets that'll be good for a full year from when you are able to watch. Edward, you asked what they're doing there. They're doing food distribution. So they're doing they're picking up school lunches. They've got a whole, it's down to a science. I think they've got a drive-through. So anyway, that's my little plug. We'll flip the camera around here. Maybe I'll do that again because we've got kind of a longer walk today. But now we also see here on the right, we talked about in our last video, which was downtown, the Citadel. The Citadel So obviously where the Salvation Army was meeting, until they built this building in 1966. Another good example of some kind of mid-century architecture that kind of shuns a lot of the things that we're used to today for churches. We've talked about this again and again and again, that churches have this set of architectural features. I think if you didn't have that big cross out in front, you might have a hard time guessing that this was a church. But it is kind of a multifunction center. My mom got married there. I know a lot of people have used the church and the hall here. So that's a good kind of a community resource. We also have over this way the pool, which, boy, not only is it not filled, but it's way too chilly to even think about swimming. Makes me cold thinking about it. It is like, I don't know, 40 out. It's pretty chilly. All right, and then up this way as we continue, so that we get another shot of the Salvation Army. I do like this brick wall. It's hard to tell in this camera, but it's just ever so slightly curved. Ever so slightly round. That gives it a kind of an interesting facade. All right, we're coming up on Roosevelt School. Now, the original portion of Roosevelt School was built in 1923, so that gives you a pretty good idea which Roosevelt it was named after. It was not FDR, it was Theodore. FDR, I think in 1923, was maybe Secretary of the Navy, or maybe he might have been governor of New York by that point. I'm not an FDR expert, but he certainly was not on the national stage like we know him today as president. Today, when most people say Roosevelt, I think most people tend to think of Franklin, just because he was president for such a long time. All right, we are going to keep going on Court Street, but maybe we'll just take a real quick walk around the building here because it's neat to see, and maybe we can see the back of Memorial Stadium. So Roosevelt, which was originally built as a junior high, so it's now an elementary school, but actually if you see, actually I'm not gonna lie, this is a little bit of a bummer. The first time I've really walked up to this. I know that Port Huron Area School District wanted all the schools to match with these kind of metal signs. It's hard to tell, maybe if we come off to the side, but it actually completely blocks the nice carving behind it that already had the school name on there. There we go, Port Huron, Roosevelt Junior High, and you can see 1929. I may have misspoke when I said 23, 29. But it's a great example of, you know, kind of 20s brick architecture, some big windows. I really like the herringbone pattern of the brick there. It's a really nice way to get some decoration in without having to do much extra. Kathy says she enjoys the walking tour. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that so many people have been enjoying the walking tours. I always appreciate your thanks and people sharing them with others and sharing stories they might have about the buildings or memories. We can see over here, there is Memorial Stadium back there in the big field. It's not much to look at from kind of the far end here, but that actually dates back almost exactly 75 years. Memorial Stadium was built well before the high school here. I know there's always some bone of contention when it gets brought up. Some people claim that, you know, Memorial Stadium is PH's home and, you know, Northern has its own stadium or something. But actually, no, it's for both high schools. It was actually for the entire city. And it's an entire complex here where there are baseball fields, there's a track. All of this was built right at the very end of World War II. We just celebrated the 75th anniversary of VE Day. So that was a good opportunity to look back at that anniversary of building Memorial Stadium there. Let's see. Maureen says there's some newer windows. Yeah, so a lot of the schools in Port Huron have just undergone some pretty big renovation. They're a little bit more energy efficient, a little bit bigger. Some of these schools have been retrofitted with a little bit of additional HVAC, so there's like air conditioning inside some of them. They're a little bit comfier. I think we can all remember maybe when we were in elementary school and on one of those hot days, nobody's learning anything, right? It's just too hot. So we're gonna keep walking around. Oh, take a look at that. There's one of those spring trees in bloom. They're my favorite trees to look at, and I think they always look real nice against some buildings. There's even a couple of tulips who have popped up Oh, quite a few. Look at that. Kind of a hidden little gem. So there have been a couple of additions. Todd talks about the one in the 80s. There was also one in the 1950s when they built PH. They built a couple of additions to the school. Like so many, it was cheaper to build an addition than a whole new building. So we'll keep walking around here. We're going to get back to Court Street. That's what I really want to focus on today. There is a slick looking 300 back here. I always kind of like those cars. It's a nice one with like the kind of big tires. All right, so we've got, oh, take a look at this. There's a nice, little Cape building, but it's got one of those beautiful pink little blossoms at springtime. I think those are always so pretty, but that's just me. And a nice home that's decorated with some encouraging messages. So we're at the back of the school. I'm guessing this is the gym. Truth be told, I don't think I've ever been in Roosevelt School. I was a substitute teacher here in town for a little while between working at the museum. I worked up at Mackinac State Historic Parks for a number of years in the summer. And then in the winter, I'd pick up some odds and ends and I'd substitute teach. And this one school I don't think I ever came to. It just never came up. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that's the gym. No windows. Some real big windows back there. And you can see a couple different styles of brick, but it's pretty obvious that darker brick with a little bit more decoration is that original portion from the 1920s. Bradley, it's a very nice house you guys had. I like that. All right, so we're going to keep on trucking. We're coming back to Court Street, and we are at, what is this, 18th? 19th Street. And we are going to hang a left because we are going to keep going back to the east. Again, this is just a different way to look at, Maureen says that's cafeteria. All right, so there we go. Cafeteria back that way, not the gym. Another one of those big rooms that doesn't have a whole lot of windows. So Court Street, there's a few real interesting buildings on it. And I know the further we go back to the east, the older these homes are going to get. It's one of those favorites that a lot of people have asked about. Take a look at that, another one of those pink trees. It's just my favorite time of year to go walking and see all of those with the little blossoms on them. It makes me think of the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. Those were a gift from Japan to President Taft in 1910. So, and they're still around and something that's become kind of synonymous with the city. So I guess they can grow in all sorts of different climates. So there are quite a few ranch style homes here. Some smaller homes, a few Cape Cods. We've got one coming up here we're going to walk by that is a nice colonial revival, kind of a federal style. One of the things we can see here, this brick guy here. Now the colonial revival homes, just like the original colonial homes, are typically symmetrical. Although this one has had maybe, I don't think it's an addition, I think it's just a little piece that was maybe built on originally because the brickwork all matches. But that's that kind of style and form. It's generally symmetrical. This one's got like a little wing out on one side. We can see there's a beautiful garden, very well maintained in front of this house. So great job, 1711 Court. It's a really nice ranch with a really nice decoration in the front lawn. And across the street, there's another little ranch. Check it out. It's got some barrage boards there. We've talked about that, and we've seen that before, where some of these homes will take little elements from different styles and put them on, and they're nice to notice. Like this little brick house here, it's got kind of a mix. There's some neat embarkation up at the top, but then the front door is kind of a federal style door sign, which is pretty neat. Hello. Walking tour. I'm from Port Huron Museum. We've been doing walking tours all throughout the city, talking about some of our historic buildings and historic homes. And today we're covering Court Street, some of the coolest houses in the city. So check us out online. There is a nice little storybook entry up here on this home with the flagpole, and I really like the addition of the little brick there on the chimney. Makes it pop and stand out on the corner there. There's another, looks kind of like a colonial house. Yeah, do you know a little bit about the house? Maybe we can find out a little bit more here. All right, kind of a special treat. We'll maintain our social distance here, but so what do you know about the place?
That house was owned by the Wirtz Manufacturing.
So Wirtz Manufacturing, okay.
Owned that house, and it used to be over on 24th Street by where McDonald's is.
Really? So it's been moved?
And they picked it up and brought it down the street and put it on that corner.
Wow, there you go.
John Wirtz
John
lived
Wirtz.
there with his wife. And so it's quite a unique little story. They brought that down Court Street and brought it here.
Wow, that'd be something to see.
This
Yeah,
lady
they used to
here
move.
probably knows even more because she lived across the street.
I just know the Palmatiers.
Oh, you know the
Palmatiers. They used to move a lot more houses than I think they do today. But
that's Wirtz Manufacturing over on 24th
Gotcha.
Street. It's still there. That's the manufacturing plant there, but the house was right by it.
well, that's really fascinating. Well, thanks for the tidbit. We've covered a lot of the public buildings in town where you can, like do research or look up newspapers. What with the houses, it's kind of hard to know, but it's, people in the neighborhood sometimes know, so that's great information.
Mortimer houses are plentiful on this block too.
Sure.
Mortimer, you know the lumber?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them.
That was next to this one over here, isn't it?
Well, thanks, guys. We're gonna keep on trucking down here. But there you go. So there's a little bit of information. The Wirtz house here moved down Court Street. It's definitely a house worth moving. A very nice one. And that just tells you there. If you ever want to know about your house, ask some of your neighbors. This is, neighbors are a great source of information about homes and how you can find out a little bit about things. Like I was just saying back there, public buildings you can look up. Houses are a little bit more difficult to research, a little more time intensive. I mean, you can go pull titles and things like that, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do on an individual house, which there are some definitely worth doing, but for a more general history of the neighborhood, ask the people who've lived there. Oral history is good and important history. It's a great way to get that information. Sometimes you want to check out the leads that those people give you. What is it, that old slogan, check but verify, that kind of thing. But it is a great way to find out a lot of good information. So as I mentioned, as we get further to the east here, the homes are going to start to get a little bit older, and some of them tend to get a little bit bigger because there are some great 19th century homes on the street as well. There's a good example of a hipped roof over there on that kind of simple ranch. Hip roofs are something that you see a lot on colonial style houses. Looks like we've got a little 4 square here. And like any good neighborhood, there is some mixed use. We're coming up. This is the Port Huron Baptist Church, which is pretty neat. I think it dates. Oh, thanks. We've got another fan there. We've got the Port Huron Baptist Church. Now, this, as far as I can tell, dates back to about the 1920s, because this wasn't originally the Baptist Church. This was the First Methodist Protestant Church until 1927. And that, I think, is about the time that they built the building. And then the Baptist, they were called Court Street Baptist, they moved in 1939. So it's not uncommon to see churches, especially churches that have similar denominations. Obviously, there's differences between Methodists and Baptists, but they're both Protestants. They both have, they're pretty close, all things considered, when you look at the wide range of religious belief. So it's no surprise that they might stick together. But take a look at these cool little Gothic arches on the windows, and way up at the top we can see just a little bit of crenellation. I'm guessing, right here they've added an elevator onto the outside. That's one of the things that a lot of people like to add to a building, especially if you've got multiple floors. you've got concerns about accessibility. You got to add an elevator. But I can tell you, elevators are difficult to add to an old building. They take a lot of work to do. You can see the front here. There's two big entrances with kind of Gothic doors. And some more of those neat looking windows up there and crenellations. So, yeah, the 1920s. So Candace says this is about the same time Roosevelt was built. So yeah, that does tell you a lot about the neighborhood, with a lot of homes here being built around that same time. All right, we've got a couple of four squares across the street, kind of a craftsman bungalow back there, and we've got another colonial rival right over there with the chimney out on the end. That one is very symmetrical. It's kind of a federal style, I think. It's got a pretty flat front to it. There are some more little bungalows over here, and there is this guy. This is really kind of unusual. Looks like it might have been a business, or almost looks like a garage or something. Kind of unusual. Don't know much about that one. I'm sure there is a story there. Maybe you guys know it. Set back. But it's got an address. I think it's a home. Another one of those nice bungalows, front porches with all the shingles right on the outside. It's a really neat way to do that. I don't know about the inside of the, I guess you're talking about the church back there? That's a good question. I do not know. Just pulling what I could from the newspaper. So if somebody knows, maybe somebody will let us do a tour inside sometime. Hi, Pooch. We've got another nice, probably 1920s, 30s home, kind of arts and crafts movement for sure, with the nice little brackets curving up there. Proud of somebody's got a PH graduate there. Now, oh, here's another neat one up here. There's some arts and crafts home. Take a look. This guy is kind of a salt box. This is colonial revival. This gives you an idea of what people were doing in the 30s and 40s. And it kind of looks like one of the homes that the Pilgrims would build. So notice how the second floor sticks out a little bit, and it's got, I think these are called pendrils that hang down just as little, like the tiniest little bit of ornamentation. There's just four of them that hang down there. Obviously this one has kind of a stone veneer on the front to give it a little bit more decoration, and a little room sticking off to the side. So that's pretty neat. All right, we're gonna keep on trucking. So you notice the homes are getting larger. There's a Dutch colonial back over that way in white. Now, oh, I know what I was going to say. Something that we don't think about in the history of architecture, but one of the biggest things in architecture, in terms of how things were changed, were elevators. By being able to build more than like 5 or 6 stories tall, elevators really changed the way our buildings look. Obviously, big buildings, when most people don't have an elevator in their home, but public buildings are huge. There's a huge difference after those. When we think about Otis and his elevator, it's like the 1850s that he comes up with the basic idea, and he doesn't come up with the idea of the elevator. Oh, look at this. This tree, it's hard to even capture it. This tree is gorgeous. It's a really nice, this might be worth enough to go over on the other side of the house to get a whole picture here. As you can tell, I am just a fan of blossoming trees in front of a house. I think it's really nice. Look at that. And it's very pretty, especially this time of year for sure. But we're going to keep on going this way. I would not be surprised if there were a few kit homes on this street. I think some people know for sure that there are. There's a neat place over there, kind of a low little bungalow. Now, elevators, the idea of an elevator had been around for a long time. The big thing Otis did was put in a safety mechanism. So it basically had 2 arms and ratcheting. So if the cables broke, it would automatically lock itself in place. You wouldn't just free fall. That's what everybody's always scared of with an elevator. But actually, if you look it up, that has only ever happened, I think, once or twice ever where someone has died in an elevator because the cables got cut and they fell. And the most famous time, the only time I know of for sure that it happened, was 1944. During World War II, a B-25 medium bomber crashed into the Empire State Building. It was, a foggy day, flying too low, crashed into the building. Fortunately, it was a Saturday. There weren't many people at work, but it severed all of the elevator cords and kind of destroyed the safety mechanism and killed a few people who were unfortunately in the elevator. But it just doesn't happen. I mean, just never. So elevator, I think, if you base it on like the numbers of miles traveled, might be the safest method of transportation humans have ever developed. So there's something to think about next time you're in an elevator. All right, we got kind of the first of one of the big Queen Anne's over on this side. And again, gives you a nice kind of juxtaposition with this guy right here. There's a couple of gables. It's asymmetrical next to something that would come a little bit later into like the teens and the 20s. A little bit smaller, lower to the ground, less formal for lots of the reasons we've talked about before. I don't want to wind up, repeating myself or boring anyone, but there are some really like the blue roof on this house. Got a white paint job. I'm guessing that's probably a repaint. White paint was not particularly popular in the 1880s and 1890s. You would have seen a lot more earth tones at that time. It's in the 1870s that they invent pre-mixed paint, where you could just go and buy a pigment that was already mixed and you were going to get the same consistent color every time. Before that, people were mixing their own paint, and obviously you'd have to match the shades. So white homes were a lot more popular before 1870, but all of a sudden, once you can call up Sears or go to the railroad stop and order some stuff from the store, and you know what color paint you're getting, people really liked are called polychromatic paint schemes. So poly just meaning many and chromatic referring to color. So you see lots of different colors. Like here's a great example here. This is a Queen Anne. This one's hidden just a little bit by these kind of really tall trees in front, but you can see there's at least 4 different colors on this house, which, it looks like this house, I'm guessing nobody's living here. Maybe somebody knows the story here. I sure hope somebody can save this house. I don't know what's going on. It's boarded up. Looks like it's probably turned into apartments because there is a stairway here to the 2nd floor. And there's a garage in the back, but that is just a little tipsy. That is not sticking straight up. So yeah, I don't know what the deal is there. Maybe a neighbor would know. There's another good opportunity. Good opportunity for some preservation for sure. I hope that somebody can come in. It looks like that house, the house sure has good bones. I don't know about that garage. That would be a little frightening as well. So homes, you can see this home here has wood clapboards, which I'm guessing are probably original, and there's something that would need to be painted about once a decade at least. But take a look at this. Look at the little window up there in that dormer. That's pretty unusual. There's a Palladian plan window in that gable, but then this one almost kind of looks like the bow of a ship sticking out there. That is pretty neat. All right, so we'll keep on walking here. Hi, Pooch. Oh, there's a nice, cute little husky. Hi, Pooch. How are you? Hopefully, you're probably enjoying this weather, aren't you? It's a little chilly. All right, we're going to keep on walking. We're all the way to 11th Street. Moving on east. We're going to cover just about all of Court Street today, since so many people have asked about it. Here's another house that you can see. It's been painted white. And obviously, I've said it before, everybody can choose whatever they want for their own house. The only thing I see with white homes, especially of this era, they have so many little details on them. Brackets and corbels and gable decorations. Now, fortunately, the details tend to get lost when they're all painted the same color. So that's a case of, the architecture is really intending for it to be multicolor. I like, this house has like an anchor up on there. Now, at least we neglect the other side of the house here, the other side of the street here. There are just so many cool homes to see. We've got, take a look at how sturdy this kind of bungalow over here looks. With the really thick columns and a big porch. It looks real neat. And this one is a little more sleek. This is like the streamlined version of that. Maybe that house goes faster. We've got another gorgeous Queen Anne over here, so we can see there's a real mix of styles with some great big, this is a great example of that, you know, polychromatic paint scheme. And you can see just how much these details stick out when they're a different color. These little dentals here, little tiny corbels, they pop right out. That's real pretty. All right, we've got another one here. This one looks really nice with the brick and the brown, because this one, I don't know, it's got a little more federal style. I don't know what is quite going on with this house. There is a little matching garage in the back. Looks like there's a, hopefully somebody can put a window in upstairs in the attic. But that's a nice one, probably from the 20s or the 30s. And now we are up on the intersection of 10th Street. And we are still trucking right along. Sue says good morning from Washington. Good morning. I'm so glad that people are coming from really all over the country. Oh, we got like 8 seconds. I'm going to kind of hop right across here so we don't want to wait. All right, we're across the street here. And look at this, another one of these amazing Queen Anne homes that has a little onion dome up on the top. There's a window that's got kind of a keyhole here on the left. Those are some of those textbook features for Queen Anne style architecture. Now, I can't say for certain, but I would not at all be surprised if maybe those front porch pillars had been replaced. They're just square, and Queen Anne homes are usually really known for turned work. Although, if we look up on the little tiny balustrades up there outside of the windows, those are also square. So maybe not. You know, not every home had, you know, turned around, and they're kind of going with the theme of this square wood. So maybe that is original. That's a really good question. We've got a few more here. Here's a good example of using shingle as decoration in the front. I like that rounded room that sticks out. Looks like a little tiny porch. I'm guessing there might have been maybe a little balustrade on top of that. And a gargoyle. That's neat. I like that. A whole bunch. Looking across the street, there is a neat looking duplex over here. Kind of a really big place, but it's a duplex. That makes sense. And we're back to some of the area that I know we have looked at and talked about a little bit before, because we're back to when we looked at some of the churches back on, I think it was Easter, right around maybe Good Friday. It seems like forever ago now. But this was originally a synagogue. Obviously, it's no longer a synagogue, it's a Christian church. But this was a synagogue right through from the 20s until the 1960s. There was a Jewish community here in Port Huron big enough to support a full synagogue. It's really simple. Looks almost like you know, kind of a more institutional building. It doesn't have, you know, a steeple. Today there's a cross up there because, again, now it's a church. But there was originally a Star of David there, which was probably really the only big indication that you got that it was a religious place of worship. We're also for sure in Old Town now. You can see we're in the historic district. This 1939, a really nice colonial revival home. So this home looks like it's picked up out of New England in, you know, the 1700s and dropped down here. And that's a great case for using non-polychromatic paint schemes. Just having that one color looks really nice on there. There's another home here. 1884 is the date on this one. I know it had been for sale not too long ago. It's got all of those nice features. It's got a tower. It's kind of almost like an Italianate in form, with that tower in the middle and the house kind of creating an L up around it. I also wanted to point out across the way, there is a nice little home. Look at this perfect, you know, they call these barrage boards up here. Sometimes they call them gingerbread, because how does this house not look like a cute little gingerbread house, right? Same thing with this house is brick on the side. I really like the brick is very square, but then you've got these kind of curvilinear forms with the brackets on the porch and up in the gable decoration as well. Some more Queen Anne homes. I know we've looked at a few of these before, and you'll notice these are just some big homes down this way, but it's at a time where even kind of a upper middle class, middle income person would be able to afford a live-in servant, let alone the rest of their whole family. Another big duplex here. I'm picking up my speed just a little bit because my battery is getting a little low. So if for some reason I lose everybody, that is why. I promise nothing bad's happened, and we'll be back with these. So we'll keep on walking. We'll try and make it maybe down to Military Street here, because I know we've seen some of these on some of the earlier walks on this area. Nice one here. Here's another example of that window that looks almost like a ship's bow. Sticks straight out there. Great way to let in a lot of light to your house. We're coming up on First Congregational here, which is a great mid-century church. Some more older homes over this way with some of these great bright colored paint schemes. It's always great when you see lots of them right next to each other. They really pop and stand out. So somebody asked, how can you tell when a house was built? There's a few ways you can investigate that. One is you can kind of pick out the style. Look at the houses in the surrounding neighborhood, see if it matches the style, and see if you can kind of figure out when that neighborhood may be dated too. You know, asking some neighbors, you can usually tell through just style alone goes a long way to tell you. Take a look at this really awesome mid-century kind of stained glass entranceway here. It's real gorgeous. Another way you can tell, you know, if it's your home, do some title research. You know, look at your title, your mortgage papers. It should all be there. It should tell you, some of the previous owners, maybe who lived there. Another great way to go is just type your address into Google. See what comes up. See if there's an old newspaper article. Obviously, if it's talking about people living at the same home from, the 20s, it was had to have been built at least then, if not earlier. And you can always ask, a historian, ask a museum, go to the library. Those are all great places to investigate how old your home is. There's 2 Foursquares here. They're for sale. Yeah, when you also Google the address, you can maybe see last time it was sold, and sometimes real estate listings will have a date built, or at least an approximate date built. You kind of want to add all the pieces together and really see what you got. Oh, we've got the Ballantyne house over here. We've talked about this one a little bit. It's all the way back to the 1850s. We are really in the old part of town now. And we're back to a place I know very well, my workplace, Port Huron Museum. We've got the camera cabin. I know Caitlin just did a video on that. It's on our page. We're looking at the back of the Carnegie Library. So, all right, so we've covered basically all of Court Street. I want to get back and make one more pitch for the museum. Hopefully you've enjoyed our little walk, looked at some of the houses today and learned some cool things. I do want to keep these up. I think we're going to try and expand into a few other areas in St. Clair County. Really look at the Blue Water area. We're pretty dedicated to telling the story of the Blue Water area. And so if you've got some ideas or suggestions or a little town you want to know about, let me know. Shoot me a message. But the best way you can support these, if you want to see more of these, is give a donation to the museum. Those donations are what are going to keep us going, or buy a ticket or a membership today. You get some perks for that. Hello. But that's what's going to keep us going. It's going to be a difficult summer for just about everyone I know. We want to be able to stay open and be able to serve the community. If the museum stays open, that means that I get to keep having a job. If I keep having a job, I can keep doing these tours. So that's ultimately what it kind of all leads back to. So that's the best way to support these. I get that question a whole lot. I do plan on keeping these up even afterwards, especially if people would be willing to open up some of their homes or businesses, and we can maybe look inside some of these buildings that people have never seen before. I know there's some I'd love to see inside. And anyway, my battery's dying. So with that, before I lose everybody, enjoy the history in your own backyard, and we'll see you in maybe a couple days. Thanks.